Now, when Saeed asked me to talk about OR in OR61, I thought this guy's possibly losing his mind. I wrote my last paper in 2011. I'm an administrator now. But then he said, we want you to talk about teaching. I said, oh, okay, that's my favorite pastime. I can do that anytime. Apparently, he had heard me talk at a European working group meeting at Birmingham back in, I don't know, 1996. And he has a good memory. But I think the real reason he invited me to speak at OR61 is because I'm 61 years old. He was looking for a 61-year-old speaker, see? Now, for those of you who are organizing the conference next year, I believe I will be 62 next year. Now, Saeed told me at the beginning that, they invited me because they wanted to kick it off lightly, okay? Before getting into the thick of things in OR. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's a drama. The story takes place in Edmonton, Alberta, at the University of Alberta School of Business. Unlike Kent, by the way, you've seen the dean. He's a true salesperson. I was a dean before. We know each other, we know our kind. Now, unlike Kent, which has 40 plus management science faculty, I don't know how you guys manage that. 14. No, 14. Did you say 14? 14. Okay, 14. I'll take 14. I heard 14. We had 4 faculty in management science at the University of Alberta School of Business. It was basically a school of accountancy. And we were sort of tolerated because they wanted to have some science in there. Okay? And we were the IE guys, OR guys, trying to teach science. Now, between 85 and 95, I did what every junior faculty member is supposed to do. Okay? The purpose of my talk here today is to encourage the junior faculty to experiment wildly. Okay? But you have to have your priorities in place. You have to be promoted first, okay? So let's not lose sight. Between 85 and 95, I was a good soldier. I was a typical researcher. I've done my papers, research grants, PhD students, and so on and so forth. So I could get promoted to full prof. Unless you're full prof, they won't really listen to you much at the university. Universities are really strange places, okay? Incredibly hierarchical, incredibly chauvinistic, and you really need to earn your colors. Okay, I did what I had to do. Then back in 1995, I think something fell on my head, and I thought, I don't like this. I don't want to just produce PhD students and papers. Hey, I have, I don't know, 50 or 60 papers, probably read by 5 or 6 PhD students each. Okay? Now, am I really making an impact on the society? I don't think so. Maybe some of you are able to write more interesting papers and make bigger impacts on the society, but I didn't think that this was my lot in life. I thought the society deserved more. I thought I could do better than this, okay? I said I'm not going to be content with being a mediocre teacher. Some people thought I was crazy because I had a good salary, I had a tenured position, doing fine. I went to my department chair and said, listen, I want to try something new, and if that doesn't work out, I'm going to actually resign. You're like, okay, if you believe in it so much, then go ahead and try, okay? So between 1995 and 2005, I tried everything I could put my hands on. And I got lucky, it worked out well for me. The OR course, which you call management science at the University of Alberta, went from the worst course in the program to the best course, if you can believe that. I mean, business students are not the most mathematically inclined students, okay? They kind of hate math. In fact, that's why they are. That's why they are there, for most of them. Yet they love the course. whoa, what happened? And of course, as a result, I ended up getting a whole pile of awards. Our electives, we used to get, I'm sorry to say this, but we used to get only the international students in our electives because they couldn't speak English well enough to understand strategy or management or human resource management. But they could do math, so they would come to our electives. Okay? And that's all right. I have no problem with international students with good math backgrounds, but I wanted to attract more. So at the end, we ended up attracting up to 700 students, 70 students per elective in 10 electives. As a result, the department started growing. Because I couldn't find enough resources, I created this forum, Informs Forum on Education, because there wasn't any, okay? It's crazy. There was, 8,000 members or something, all doing OR, some queuing, some inventory, some stochastic modeling, some discrete optimization. They all had something in common. They were all teachers. But they weren't talking about teaching. I thought that was crazy. So I created this Informs Forum on Education. Then I saw there was not enough resources in the field, and I created this journal on Informs Journal Transactions on Education. The society's stance was basically they could not disagree with me publicly, but they really wanted to keep the teachers at bay. So they said, you can have a journal, but it has to be an electronic journal. It can't really be along the same line as OR and management science and so on. You can have your journal, but keep it electronic, okay? I said, fine. Again, you had to have the credibility. If I didn't have those papers and those citations, they would have completely written me off as a fluke. I've been doing many of these plenaries, but I haven't recently because in 2005, I got bored again. In Turkish, we call this maymun iştahlı. I have the appetite of a monkey. I move from service to service, from job to job. I get bored, okay? You all do, admit it. You simply cannot do the same thing over and over again. So when I get bored, I change, okay? From a full-time researcher, I went into a full-time teacher. Then I started a center for excellence in operations, became a full-time consultant, then I became a full-time administrator. I don't know what's next. I hope there is a next because I'm planning to work on it for another at least 20 years. I was talking to Dursun the other day, and I said, hey, I want to work till I'm 85 or something. I want to come to OR 85, okay? But I'm still teaching, okay? So you might wonder, my contract doesn't stipulate that I have to teach. I'm still teaching. Why am I teaching? Because it's fun. And because I want to challenge myself, because I want to keep growing. It fuels my passion, and this is what I think the biggest impact is. With me seeing 400 students every year, parting them with the wonders of management science, operational research, call it whatever you like. These days we call it business intelligence, business analytics, intelligent decision making. Those are more words that people like a little bit better than operational research, which is kind of geeky, okay? Now, I'm doing it because it's a lot of fun. In fact, I've taken the science or the teaching of management science out of the classroom into workplace training sessions where I train about 300 students offline and another 3,000 or so online. And part of the training is actually OR. Now, back in 1995, I'm a graduate of the University of Florida. Is Panos here? Panos? He wasn't my teacher. He arrived at the University of Florida after I left. But at the time I joined the University of Florida as a PhD student, it was a top 20 program. Is it still, Panos? Probably, yeah. Great PhD program, not a single word on teaching, okay? I was supposed to learn how to teach through osmosis from others who were, some of them were good teachers, some of them were not that good teachers, yet I was supposed to learn it through osmosis. Imagine that. 5 years of PhD program, you have that here too, right? 5 years of PhD program. How many years of training do they get in teaching? Don't answer that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it really is terrible. They teach you how to drive a truck and then they want you to fly a plane. That's crazy, okay? So you have to basically learn it on the job. Look what we're doing to our students. We're putting unqualified teachers in front of them. I'm not qualified to be a high school teacher, you know that? I cannot teach in high school because I'm not qualified, but I can teach at a university, imagine that. Because adults can take it, yeah? That's crazy. So I was basically teaching the way I was taught. I was preparing 80-minute lectures, chalk and talk, textbook, exams, typical. And I had this assumption, I really was out of my mind, that the students were interested, that they were motivated somehow, that they could learn in the classroom, that they could analyze, specialize, synthesize. They could get it, and then they could actually apply it. They had the necessary background. And I thought I was a teacher. I thought I knew how to teach. Canadians are very polite. They don't tell you that you know nothing, okay? But now I know nothing back then. I guarantee you this is how it is still today. We still do not teach our PhD students how to teach. Yet we expect them to perform in the classroom. School of Business teaching requirements keep going up. They expect you to be a performer, but no one teaches you how to perform in front of audiences. Crazy. But it's the truth. So the students said, well, this guy's all right. They would give me a 3 out of 5 points. And Canadians are polite. They'd give me usually a 3. It's okay? But this is all theory. I used to teach weak duality to business students. I used to teach them raw operations by hand, back in the 90s. Come on. No computers, period. No internet, period. Okay, there wasn't any internet. So they thought I was kind of boring. I loved the stuff, I lived for it. I mean, I get excited from weak duality, strong duality, CB minus CBB inverse, ZJ minus CJ. That stuff excited me. But students would look at me like I'm out of this world. And they would think this is all theory, and of course it was all theory. They would find me boring, kind of awkward, but boring nevertheless. They ended up hating the course. Some of them ended up hating the faculty. They all hated me, but they never said it out loud, and they got depressed. So this is the setup, okay? Back in 1995, I said, enough is enough. I want to change this. Now, what made it possible for me to change, though, have you read Outliers? How things sort of fall in places at certain times in the history, and good things happen? That's actually what happened back in 1995. Here's my view of technology in the classroom. This is 18,000 years ago, Altamira, Spain, okay? 17,900 years of progress. Eraser. We could actually erase what we drew, and we could draw again. More or less, okay? But in 1995, something crazy happened. Internet became sort of known, available. I was the first person to put up a web page at the entire University of Alberta. Not an engineering prof, not a computer science prof, but a business prof, okay? Because I was grasping. I needed something. Excel became reasonably robust, and the solver became reasonably trustable. We had this thing called color laptops. And then these projectors, those data project. Have you seen a data projection panel? Like a big thing, you put it on a projector and light goes through, a little bit of light goes through on the screen. All that stuff made it possible to actually bring the computer into the classroom and start showing some things to the students on the screen. Now that is the possibility part, okay? What you're seeing here is actually an entrepreneurship story. It's a startup story. For innovation to happen, you have to have possibility and necessity. The possibility got there back in 1995, and the necessity had been there for a while, but I was waiting for my promotion to final prof. So I put these two together, and I started experimenting with the students. Now, here's something I learned. If you want to improve, first of all, you need to know yourself. I was a successful PhD student at a good school. I had papers. But that means nothing in terms of strengths in the classroom. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? We teach that stuff in the Faculty of Business. Why don't we apply it on ourselves? I haven't seen too many OR types do that, actually. Maybe they don't want to face the reality. Do a SWOT analysis of yourself. Do a SWOT analysis of your department. In fact, deans should require that from all the faculty of the departments. In fact, presidents should require it of the deans. Then you need to know your audience. You know, it's so easy for us to say, these kids, you know, they have very short attention spans. They're terrible with these little gadgets. They play with their phones all day, and they're not interested by anything. But saying that doesn't get you anything. Doesn't make you a better teacher. You have to know the audience, and you have to see how you can get to the audience. Trust me, there are ways. Of course, you have to know your resources. Now there are a lot more resources than back in 1995. And you need to experiment. Kids are robust. You can't break them. Go ahead and experiment. You'll make a few mistakes, but you'll find your way along the way. I realized that if I wanted to be a good OR teacher, first I needed to be a good teacher. So then that got me, you know, the researcher in me got me reading about the history of teaching. It's an oversimplified, super simplified version of history of teaching. We start with actually just learning by doing and learning by watching in the Stone Age. And then we have the Socratic method, which I think very highly of. Then we have the first universities, vocational training. Then we had the industrial society, stack them deep, teach them cheap, to produce industrial laborers. This is still the model we use across the world, period. It's a 100-year-old method, developed by Germans first and then the Americans. And it's not working anymore. It's not fit for the knowledge society. But our ship is too big to maneuver, so we just keep crunching. Just keep doing what we think we do best. Then, with the University of Berlin, came this idea of that not all the knowledge out there might be available, and we might want to generate new knowledge, which gave rise to research universities. And Johns Hopkins is the one that took this concept to North America. And then most universities today are second-generation research universities. All these rankings, what do they rank? Papers and citations, great. What about impact? What about social impact? How many entrepreneurs have you created? How much economic impact have you created? What are we paying you for? Now, people have started asking these questions, and the University of Alberta's response was creating buttons that said, research matters. Trying to sell the public the notion that research is really important and you ought to spend billions of dollars a year in supporting research. Of course it matters. Of course you have nothing without research. But is that all you can do? Should you spend all of your time on this? Some universities realize that we need to exploit the results of our research. Third-generation university, best example is probably MIT, Stanford, Cambridge. They started producing entrepreneurs in thousands, okay? So that puts to rest a notion that entrepreneurs are born. Are they all born into MIT? No, they're made, okay? You can actually create entrepreneurs in schools of business. This is what we all ought to be doing. We moved past that. Now we have the knowledge society. And part of the knowledge society is this Y generation, or now Z generation. Z generation has entered university this year. Next is alpha and then beta. We ran out of letters, you see, X, Y, Z. I don't know why they started with X. And then we do alpha, beta, gamma, and so on. Now, this generation will not put up with me. They will not put up with me talking. They don't want the sage, okay? This is why they're fiddling with their phones. They don't want to hear you talk more than 3 to 5 minutes. They want to see you in YouTube video bursts. So you need to plan accordingly. Now, there are two main teaching paradigms. I started going to education conferences. The first paradigm is the sage on the stage paradigm, the Central European paradigm. The one that's also used in Turkey. The professor usually speaks to a large group of students. Information delivery. Students are passive. They absorb. The student is the know-it-all. The professor is the know-it-all expert on the stage. Now, the North American, you could also call it the Anglo-Saxon model, is based on information exchange. It's based on a dialogue. It provides a map. I'm not the sage, but I'm the guide. And then it guides you on the way. forces you to be active, forces you to think. Now, we actually seriously sit down and debate the pros and the cons of this teaching paradigms. What we ought to be thinking about is learning paradigms. How do people learn? So when you ask people how they learn, they basically say, this is nonsense. We don't want to hear the sage, especially when all the information is freely available on the web, in short video bursts. We don't want to hear the expert. We want to learn by thinking and being active in the classroom. So there's only one form of learning, active learning, okay, period. Now, that really makes us uncomfortable because we think we are useless. No, this is actually our true role, to help people think and learn along the way. Instead of telling them, helping them discover on their own, because then they don't forget, they internalize. So active learning, I've realized that what I was supposed to be doing, what I sort of liked doing, was called active learning. There was a name for this. It's kind of funny. You experiment with all sorts of funny things, and then you realize there is some word for it in the literature, and you've been doing it right. And then it makes you feel really good. Oh, I was practicing active learning. That's wonderful. You basically shift the onus onto the students. You force them to take charge of take initiative of their own education. And then you let them discover the area at their own speed with their classmates. And that actually maximizes your utility to the class, because you don't treat them as a mass, you treat them as individuals. Students they get more self-confidence from this approach, and the creativity comes out. They start taking initiative. Now, this is one thing I discovered, and then I kept reading more. And then, it said, well, this is how we learn. First information intake, then we internalize it, convert it, apply it, expand it. And when I looked at what we do in the classroom, this is what we do in the classroom. We do things with very low cognitive load in the classroom. The easy stuff. The hard stuff, solving examples, homework, okay? Discuss applications, do that at home. Evaluate. Well, you do that in your project. Why do we do the simple things in the classroom and force the students to do the hard things at home? That doesn't make sense. That's a cop-out. We're not doing them service. We need to flip it. And I realized I was doing that, and then I realized there was a term for it called flipped learning. Okay? Now, this is my flip. I don't lecture in the classroom. I kick it off with a very realistic problem. What I teach is easy. I teach forecasting. I teach inventory management. I teach distribution management. Okay, you got these goods, you need to move them from the plants to the warehouses, and then from the warehouses on to the distributors, and then to the customers. Here's the problem. Find a solution for it. Let them struggle with it for half an hour. Let them realize they cannot solve it with the background and knowledge that they have. Let them beg you for a method, and then give them the method. You need to wait for the window of learning to open. And even then, don't give them the method as, here's the method, use it. Discover the method with them. You're the guide. Reinvent Dijkstra's shortest path algorithm every lecture. Start with a simple heuristic, show them why that doesn't work, and then, okay, how can we fix this? But do that in a very slow fashion. Now, when I was doing all this stuff, people started visiting me from different places in North America. And one of them said, well, what you're doing is really slow. Aren't the students objecting? I mean, you're not, if I did this, I couldn't cover the material. And I told him, hey, the goal is not to cover the material, it's to uncover the material. I thought, oh, okay. That's good, that's good. Now, so I actually watched videos of me from back 1995, 99, that period. There was no digital videos back then. I was the first person to actually have a digital video piloted on campus. I look at those videos and I can't believe how slow I take it. I'm usually a, rush kind of person. So it takes a lot of self-discipline not to jump in and say, hey, that's not the answer, I'm going to give you the answer. Let's find the answer together. So turn the whole lecture into a lab, into an atelier, into a workshop. Really slow, let them internalize, never disconnect from them, address them, let them work in groups, and then let them do the work in the labs, but never stay too far away from them. 24/7 help. I did that through a large group of assistants, of course, but 15 years ago, we used to get 1,000 emails a semester and 2,600 posts on the board. So there was basically, I was able to establish what is called a learning community. I didn't know the term back then, but there's a word for it, learning community. Students helping each other. That creates a very fertile ground for group work and for projects, of course. So, this flip worked wonderfully for me, and I would recommend it to everybody. I think operations research is eminently flippable because we're really not talkers. Well, some of us are. But we're doers, okay? So we get a chance to actually do it with the flip method. And they can read up on the theory at home. That's really the easier part. Now, this would be my lecture. I would always, one lecture, one lab, one lecture, one lab. I would always do the lecture with the labs in mind. I basically set them up for the labs because the goal is for them to learn on their own with the machine or working in groups. No note-taking. Back in 1995, when I wanted to use Excel in the classroom, I couldn't find the book. Can you imagine that? Not a single textbook had the word Excel in it. It was like a disease. So I had to write my own with my colleagues, a group of 4 people, okay? So there was no note-taking. Everything was in the notes. We would give them the notes for free. And of course, we would display as much passion, intensity, and energy in the classroom as we could muster. It's really easy for you to be passionate about OR, I would hope, or else you are in the wrong business. Now, if you are passionate about it, show it. Let them wonder, what the heck, why is this guy so excited about this? If this guy can get so much excited about a model, then maybe there is something there. Maybe I ought to touch this thing. Maybe it will do me some good as well. You remember the movie When Harry Met Sally? She's faking an orgasm and the other woman says, I want to have whatever she's having. Make him feel like that. Show the intensity and the passion. And take your time. Now, for the young people here, okay, a lecture, the audience, it's the opposite of the presentation you'll be doing at this conference, okay? You'll be talking to a group of unmotivated, cynical, non-uniform group of students, okay? Totally the opposite of this. You have to accept that students are normal people, okay? And we are geeks, okay? I'm a geek, not a nerd. Now, you have to level with them. You have to treat them as normal people. The duration is way too long. 50 to 80 minutes is way too long to talk. And the emphasis really should be on communication. The goal is to inspire them, to motivate them, not to teach them the steps of an algorithm, not to prove a theorem in class. I mean, you do that in PhD classes anyway. I'm talking about teaching undergraduates introductory management science. The worst lecture, in my opinion, is a conference presentation. So whatever you do here, don't do that at home. Take that out. Now, what I learned as I was teaching is that every lecture is a performance. Whoever thinks there's a difference between performing and teaching doesn't know the first thing about either. Some smart person said that. Kind of like it. Every lecture is a performance, but it should not be a monologue. In other words, do not do what I'm doing right now. Slow learning. Slow food, slow cities, sitta slow. Slow learning is good. The goal is to uncover the material, remember that. And plan the lecture as a series of events. A little bit of Excel, a little bit of video, a little bit of discussion, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I used to do that because I have attention deficit disorder. Because I can't do the same thing all the time myself. I get bored myself. So I used to try to keep myself engaged. And as a result, the students got engaged. And then I went to a session taught by a brain scientist. And he said, modulation of cognitive load. Whoa. He said this is the key to undergraduate teaching. You have to modulate the cognitive load. Typically what we do is we take them up, and then we keep them at that high level for 80 minutes, and then we drop them. Doesn't work. You know, for learning to occur, people have to have these periods of peace. So when you're doing this, and it turns out you best internalize new material when you are at the lowest cognitive stage, which is sleep, okay? So you need to learn something and then sleep. So when you're doing this, your hope is that the person teaching after you will put them to sleep. Otherwise, there will be what psychologists call interference. Your stuff and his stuff getting all mushed up into a soup. So you need to build this modulation of cognitive load into your teaching. So you need to take them up and then maybe do a bit of a discussion or a video, and then take them up again and then let it down, let them internalize. Okay, this is what science is telling us, and we're scientists, right? Science of better, yet we lecture for 80 minutes. That's not better. That's awful. We got to get off that. We have to modulate the cognitive load. And here is me modulating the cognitive load. This is a picture from 2004. You remember me with the long hair, Panos? I had the long hair. That's when I cut the long hair into a mohawk. This was part of a fundraising effort, by the way. I don't normally teach this way. It's only one lecture. While I was teaching that lecture, actually, the dean came into my class unannounced. And he goes, wow, I usually wear a red tie when I want to attract attention. Yo. It's easy to modulate the cognitive load if you just give some thought to it. You know, web search, summarizing of takeaways, musical break. I used to play music in class because, again, I like music. And then it turns out I read some literature that says listening to music makes us smarter. 11 points. You know, if you just listen to some Mozart before you take an IQ test, your results go up by 11 points. It triggers something in the brain, okay? So if you have an 80-minute lecture, why don't you play a 2-minute song at minute 30, 35, 40, 45, something like that. Now, when you do that, students think, well, that's different. This guy's just because they realize you're experimenting, you're trying something new, you get bonus points, you see. Even if what you're doing does not work, you get bonus points for trying. So you can do a lot of non-lecture activities. I mean, our strategy, marketing, management fellows do this really well, but we don't do as much of it as they do. You can do a lot of non-lecture activities in a lecture. By the way, the presentation is available. You can send me an email, or you can cite as it. So these are the keys of the course. The material is very problem-driven. Kick it off at the forecasting problem, kick it off with an inventory, kick it off with the distribution problem, production planning problem. It's sort of case-based teaching, okay? Become a strong believer in case-based teaching. I don't believe in lectures anymore. And if the cases come from local companies, so much the better. So this became a nice loop. My students would go out and do projects, local projects, and then I would feed those local projects into the classroom. One of the students from this course last year did this project at Lafarge, Canada, and I want you to take a crack at it. They're all interested because it's a company that they know about. Maybe their father works for them, maybe their cousin works for them, what have you. The lectures are very interactive, very multimodal. A lot of Excel in the classroom, real-time modeling. I actually use an operator so I can walk the aisles in a 400-student classroom. It's a large class setting. So the operator just follows instructions. $10 an hour, okay? Do it. Instead of you being here trying to peck at the keyboard and trying to look at the students at the same time, hire a student to do the job for you. Simple. And then that became a prestigious job for the students. They wanted to be Robin to Batman, you know. Okay, so most importantly, you have to keep it fun. Now, we usually don't think of fun when we think of operations research, but life should be fun. Otherwise, people will simply not play along. Why am I using spreadsheets? This was an argument I had back in the 90s. I don't think it's an issue anymore. I think everybody's using spreadsheets. Now, you cannot find a book that does not use spreadsheets anymore, can you? I mean, I used to hear all the stories about, oh, but it's two-dimensional. Yeah, but most of the world is two-dimensional, okay? Yeah, but there's Lindo, there's Cplex, there's GAMS. Yeah, but these are undergraduate business students. Second-year course, man, come on. Third-year course. All of a sudden, these algebra haters, remember, this is why they're in business, okay? This is why they're not in engineering. They don't like AX plus BY. Oh, instead, they see cells. Whoa, you multiply those two, you get that. Whoa, look at that. It empowers them, okay? It gives them the sense that, hey, this is useful and I can actually do it. Of course, not limited to spreadsheets. Even back then, I used to use ArcView, geographic information system. I don't know if you are familiar with it. We used to use ProModel and Service Model for animated simulation. I mean, Simulate is the sponsor at this conference, so I should mention their name as well. I suppose that's also a software package. But Arena, Wolverine, whatever, use that in your simulation class. Expert choice, I don't know if expert choice is still used. AHP, MS Project, Access, VBA, Cplex. We used whatever was necessary. We used these as show and tell in the intro course, and then more heavily in the electives. In general, technology, I thought, was a wonderful fit with OR. Is anyone familiar with MS Video Encoder? Nobody's using this thing. It was available back in 1990s, okay? What it does is it takes screenshots of what you do on a spreadsheet. So you don't have to tell the students how to create a two-way data table. You can simply shoot a video. I mean, now there are videos on YouTube, millions, of course. But before that, you could create your own video by simply pointing and clicking and letting Excel record your moves of the mouse. It was a very easy way for us to let the students do something at home in case they forget some of the clicks. Gamification is big. We created this prediction market, World Cup soccer, and like bonfire. We also did something with hockey, of course. In Canada, you have to. There's this thing called, what's the magic number for Oilers to sort of make it to the playoffs? Magic number is 4. 4 wins or 4 losses by whatever. We realized that the journalists were calculating this incorrectly because it's just too many interactions, they couldn't keep track of them. So we created a model that found the actual magical number, and we actually published that in the newspaper. Okay, so gamification and OR really go hand in hand. And then, of course, something came up called Twitter. I jumped into it, and I asked students to tweet. Some of the quizzes would be on Twitter. You need to express yourself in, it was 140 characters back then, how best to explain something. Or I'd ask them a question, and it would be due in 2 hours. You're forcing them to follow you. You're forcing them to stay with the course, even after the hours. Something came up called Periscope. So I started periscoping my lectures. 2 years ago, I was periscoping the entire lecture, open to anybody who wanted to see. People were writing to me from remote villages in Turkey, saying, well, I just watched this lecture and I have this comment. I'm lecturing in Turkish in the intro course. So it's another way for us to touch a lot of people. If you think that the classroom is a sanctuary, you won't do that. But I think my goal is to maximize impact. So whenever something new comes up in technology, my question is, how can I use this in OR? How can I make my OR course better by using this technology? Why bother with all this? Because it works, basically. Because it gives us a whole bunch of new avenues into people's minds. It allows us to claim more of their time, makes them more comfortable. They end up using the technologies they became familiar with in your classes, and they give you credit for it. They call you a techno-prof, which is a good thing, especially in a faculty of business. And it certainly works. And this is a competitive advantage in OR. So when teaching OR, we need to think about what can I use from technology to make this course more exciting, more fun, more credible. Now, what I learned in my 30 years of teaching is that we have this view that students learn from experts mostly. They don't much learn from peers or on their own. Education research tells us it's actually the other way around. They don't learn a lot from the experts. They learn a lot on their own, and they learn in peer groups. So what we need to do is we need to design our courses accordingly. Trust me, this does not make you any less valuable. That's the fear, okay? If I let them learn in peer groups, or if I let them learn from Khan Academy-like video, then what am I for? Well, you're the designer. Instead of the talker, now you become the designer. Actually, it elevates your status. You design experiences for the students. That's our real role. That's what it should be. So we need to recognize our limits. We need to simply accept the fact that we cannot teach in the classroom. It doesn't work like that. You cannot open somebody's mind and fill it with knowledge and close it up. Maybe we can learn that way, but remember, we're not normal people. We're in this because we're in love with OR. You're talking to a different audience. Peer learning works wonderfully. To facilitate this, I hire student assistants. So I teach a large class, you ask the dean, hey man, instead of 6 sections, teach 1 section, so you give me credit for 2, and then you give me some money so I can hire assistants. So it's a win-win-win all around. That was the economics of it. And the goal is to really create a learning community, because the community works even when you don't. The community is 24/7. Self-directed learning, because that's what life is all about. University is supposed to teach them how to learn on their own, right? So stop trying to teach them in the classroom. Connect to the real world, which is really easy for us. I mean, maybe some of you are doing deep end, mathematics of OR thing, but most of us are actually doing things that have projections in the real world. And then use projects whenever possible. All this stuff is really easy in OR. So I think OR was a disaster, that OR was a disgrace that OR was not the most liked course at the University of Alberta back in the 90s. It should have always been, had it been delivered the proper way. Now that it has become the most liked course. It should have the same status everywhere in the world. We should be the most liked subject in the Faculty of Business. A lot of Faculty of Business deans tolerate us because they want our publications. They want the citations, okay? We bring in money. They like that, okay? They should like us also because we are great teachers. Trust me, a lot of teaching in the Faculty of Business is talking. What we deliver is the real goods. We actually allow the students to make a difference in the world by modeling analytical thinking. Now, what comes after the intro? Well, very important point. There is no intro. If you don't play your cards right, that's the only course you'll ever get to teach. That's it. It's not an intro course. It's the course, okay? Period. Now, I was talking to Martin yesterday. He said, you have what? You have 40 faculty, right? You're the one with the 40 faculty. Southampton is the one with the 40 faculty. 40 faculty, man. Risk, operations management, operations research. What was the fourth one? Information. MIS, yeah. 40 faculty. Now, so 500 students. He's got it sold. He doesn't have to try. But there are some of us who are in smaller departments who have to really try to make OR a liked course. What happens when you make it a liked course? What happened to me was, well, okay, let me do this first before I get to the rest of the story. You need to offer electives, right? Now, my first impulse was to offer classical electives, like application electives, production planning, inventory management, facility location, because those are the courses that I had in my back pocket. It was easy for me. And then my other impulse was to go the theoretical route and go large-scale optimization, column generation techniques, integer programming, dynamic programming, technique-based electives. Well, I have news for you. In a Faculty of Business, these will not sell. Okay? Period. So teach them in an underhanded way, through something that's sexy, something that sells. Here's something that sells. I've done all of this and it sells, I guarantee you. Environmental OR. Why? Because it's the world's #1 problem right now. Climate change, right? Overuse of resources. Teach a course in an environmental OR. There's a lot of material out there. You can. I've done this. I've done an elective in environmental OR. Teach a course, invade the fields of those guys who are popular, marketing and finance. Teach a course in OR in finance, OR in marketing. It's called Marketing Science. Gary Lillian has a wonderful book on cases in marketing science. You know what? You'll be amazed how quickly you pick up. You'll be amazed how easy that stuff is to you, okay? All of a sudden, you start talking like your marketing prof. It's easy. And of course, teach a course in sports. Teach the Moneyball course. Buy the book Soccernomics. Kick off with that. And applications of OR in sports. Tons, okay? Tons. Now, students flock to courses like that. And then, of course, if you don't want to call your course operational research, you can try management science. We tried operations management. You could call it decision support. You could call it business analytics. You could call it business intelligence. Business analytics is the new journal of yours. Dursun wants more papers, by the way. It's a wonderful journal. Yeah, good name, huh? And you know, it's attracting attention. Business intelligence, whoa. Intelligent business, I want that, okay? Operational research, it's got research in it. No, this is theory. I don't like this flavor. I'll take the business intelligence course. Let the geeks take the operational research course. You teach the same thing, okay? Just be gentle about it. Just think about communications. And then, of course, do teach management consulting. You know what? Management consulting, one group strategy consulting, another group operational consulting, IT consulting. This is us. If I hadn't been an academic, I would have been a management consultant. And then my third choice would have been investigative journalist. Okay? I love those jobs. Now, teach a course in management consulting. I had a 2-course sequence on management consulting. The first semester was cases from Informs. There wasn't business analytics journal back then, so I used to teach cases from interfaces. Take an interface case, apply it on a spreadsheet, or localize the problem. Present it as if you had done it yourself, so practice. Okay? Second semester, we'd bring in companies who tell about their problems. If they go to KPMG, minimum $50,000, and KPMG is the low end, okay? If they come to me, it's $5,000. I would actually charge, my students would charge $5,000 to companies to do a pilot project, okay? People thought I was crazy. It worked like a charm. Because every CFO, every CMO had a pet project in his back pocket that he wanted to be tested, and he had $3,000 or $5,000 to throw away. So he tried it, and then they loved it, and then they kept coming back. And our undergraduate business students who'd taken the intro course, plus maybe 3 or 4 electives, started doing wonderful consulting work. Now, I wasn't happy with this school managing the fee, so I opened a bank account myself so I could pay the students faster. And then one day I get a call from my dean, says, I seem to have made a mistake of biblical proportions. Now, to me, that doesn't mean much, of course. I haven't read the Bible, so what do you mean, sir? What do you mean, sir? He said, you opened an account. I said, yeah. And you're paying students? Yeah. Whoa, you have to come to Canada immediately. I'm on vacation with my parents. I have $10,000 in the account, man. That's 1 month's salary. What's your problem? Apparently, it's a big no-no, okay? But I have found a way around the bureaucracy, and I could pay the students immediately. Companies would pay the account, and the account would pay the students. Maybe don't do that, okay? Don't take it that far. But here are some of the projects. And the ones in blue are actually projects that we were able to turn into papers. Yes, papers with undergraduate students on applications. It's possible. There are journals that will publish this sort of work. And something else I realized that kind of depressed me at first and then made me really happy was I realized that the students learned the most when I didn't lecture at all. Taking active learning to the limit, okay? You shut up, let the students learn through the projects. If they want to hear you, they will call you. So you arrange meetings, 2 or 3 or 4 meetings per semester with the students. But you don't force them to come to the meetings. You are a resource, okay? Our management consulting students actually hired MBAs, paid them real money to do part of the work. We were a resource to them. They could pay us, quote unquote. We didn't take money, of course, but we had a limited number of hours. I give you 6 hours per term. Use it any way you like. Each group would get 6 hours. Half-hour slots. They could have up to 12 meetings if they wanted to. No one had asked for 12 meetings, of course. So in a way, our students got to thinking about management consulting. Nobody at the University of Alberta wanted to be a management consultant. You ask them first day, 45% of them wanted to be accountants, the rest wanted finance or marketing. No one even mentioned operations. No one had heard of management consulting. As a result, every year, 3 to 5 of our students got into management consulting after this course. Now, here's one project. I just found this in one of my old presentations. What do you think this is? Edmonton. Edmonton, wonderful. That's a good guess. You must be an OR guy. Huh? What problem is solved here, you think? School buses, pretty good guess. Location? Nah. Yeah, of course. I mean, you'd guess location. I mean, Saeed, what else is here? Yeah, but I know other things. It's very close to location. Huh?
Jigsaw puzzle.
Jigsaw puzzle, yes, it's a jigsaw puzzle. Political redistricting, friends, for the city council elections. Now, the bottom line is, we sold them the maps, and the city council elections are done through maps that I and my PhD student created. What do I know about political science? Nothing, but I'm an OR guy. I can learn. I can ask the right questions, figure out what the objective function is, figure out what the constraints are, create an algorithm for it, solve it. Okay? So this is a gerrymandering problem, political redistricting problem. PhD thesis by Burçin Bozkaya. I picked this up because I read it in the newspaper. They were having problems with zoning. Okay, I can solve that problem. It's a many to one assignment problem, okay? Yeah, 600, 800 electoral zones into 10 or 12 or 15 districts, difficult, large. So what? This is what we're good for. So we did some taboo search with memory. Now they call it artificial, you can call this artificial intelligence if you like, but we did taboo search with memory, and we ended up publishing it in eJour. We sold them these maps for $10,000 each. They wanted the software. We didn't sell the software because they're going to start crying about maintenance, okay? They're going to start asking all sorts of questions. I pushed escape, and then my screen went black, and what do I do now? Hey, man, I'm not selling software. I'm selling you maps if you want. They bought 8 maps, $80,000. So we created a company called DistrictWise. But I don't have money instinct, so I just closed down the company after a while, after we sold a few of these maps. Anyway, good things can come out of projects, okay? Well, am I going the wrong way? All right, so now that the management science is conquered, the dean came down to me, or came up to ask me up to his office and said, well, I want you to teach the Intro to Business course. Okay, here I am. I've never been in a business school myself, apart from being a teacher, okay? I don't have a single degree in business. I know nothing about finance or marketing, apart from what I've learned as I went. I'm supposed to teach Introduction to Business. Why is the dean doing that? Because he's got somebody who can appeal to the masses. He's got someone who can draw the large class in and make them like a course that he's teaching. So it's a right move on the dean's part, and what do? Of course, I turn it into an OR course. Yeah, man. I mean, I think the dean sort of guessed that, okay? Because I teach what I know. But I did not call it an OR course. I call it Introduction to Business. And then, for example, the marketing case was technological forecasting, okay? Gompertz curve fitting, okay? The finance course was time value of money, Excel, two-way data table, goal seek, what have you. So 5 or 6 cases, plus a business model, a business plan, plus entrepreneurship, plus group presentations, made a wonderful introductory business course. And then we've exported the course to a number of schools since. At least 3 schools in Turkey right now are using this course. Now, after that, I realized that I'm entrepreneurial, and I started a couple of universities, created the first on-campus accelerator. This is the self-promotion part. I heard there's going to be a dean in the audience. No, I'm not looking for a job. I actually got into corporate entrepreneurship. Okay, what do I know about entrepreneurship? There are departments of entrepreneurship. There are 60 professors of entrepreneurship at Harvard alone, okay? Hey, I can learn. I can read Steve Blank. I can watch videos, and then I can repeat what they say and make it even stronger, better with OR. So right now, I'm the spokesperson for a corporate entrepreneurship program in one of the largest holdings in Turkey. They are trying to spin out companies from within, okay? They finance the companies, they give them 75% ownership, they give them capital and support. They ask them to resign and create their own company. I've designed this, and I'm helping them as spokesperson and mentor. I'm also running a workplace skills camp, which, presentation skills, teamwork, career management, CV, but I also have Excel modeling in there, 2 days. I also have Python in there. So I teach high school students Python, and then we graduate them to R before they come to college. Now, so much about what happened in the past. Now I want to say a few things about what I expect will happen in the future. Now, these are, I think, the 6 forces that are impacting education right now. This is, in fact, Said, when I accepted your invitation, I have to make an admission here. I thought this book would be finished by now, but things got in the way. I mentioned I was writing a book on the future of education. Things got in the way, but this is from the book. There are 6 major forces that are impacting education. Okay, OR is not going to be safe from these changes, so we need to know in which way the education world is changing and how we fit in best. Explosion of knowledge. The total information is doubling every 12 hours or something. That's an IBM guess. It's crazy. So content-based teaching is done, it's finished. Explosion of costs, $50,000, $60,000 a year. $1.4 trillion of debt, student debt, in the US alone. Middle class cannot afford university anymore, period. Increase in inequalities. I was kind of expecting the world to become a more equal place. It's not happening. So haves and have-nots. The haves go to school. The have-nots become laborers. If they can find jobs, becoming rarer and rarer because of the robots and so on. Number 4, technology is changing the way we teach and learn. Number 5, Z generation is different. Not any better, not any worse, just different. They force us to change our delivery. And number 6, entrepreneurs. As we see in every sector, if you follow Clayton Christensen or Steve Blank, they mentioned about these small companies that keep eating at the pants of the large companies. Large companies keep ignoring them, like Blockbuster ignoring Netflix, and boom. By this I mean Udemy, Udacity, Coursera, edX, these types, Khan Academy, those types of startups. I think the existing system is not sustainable, and I think it's ripe for disruption. It's entrepreneurial theme. Now, what do we do about this? A typical university is not sustainable. Here I want to go back and think about the purpose of education in the 21st century. This is the purpose of education. This is from a book by Wagner and Dintersmith. Nothing in there about content, okay? It's about discover, passioning, purpose, developing critical skills and inspiration. And when you look at these critical skills, agility, adaptability, communications, accessing, analyzing information, curiosity, I think OR has a role to play, sort of quite central actually. Now, this is the backbone of my book. I'm going to discuss the future of education in 10 chapters, how education will change, emphasis on skills instead of content, and so on and so forth. I guess you'll wait for the book and learn Turkish in the meantime. But I think all these changes, maybe I'll have it written in English as well, like producing entrepreneurs, close to the real world, learning via AI. This is all OR. So we have actually a great opportunity in Education 4.0, which is going to emerge. And it's going to emerge in mostly despite the universities. It's going to be done by revolutionaries within the universities and outside the universities. But the universities will simply be dragged into it. The deans and the presidents will resist this because they have an economic model that seems to be working. The economic model is going to be shaking after a while, and then eventually things will change. Now, a couple of examples of what I've done at MEF that are maybe showing the way a little bit. Industrial engineering department, we have 8 or 9 faculty. MS in IE, come on, MS in IE. Yeah, you have it and it works, great for you. But MS in IE will not work for me. So I tried MS in supply chain, lukewarm. There are lots of big established schools in Turkey. My school is in its 5th year. I'm a startup. I need to do something differently. I can't do an MS in supply chain. So I did an MS in data analytics, big data analytics. Okay, it was the 2nd program in Turkey, and I made it 1/3 the price of the first one. So true entrepreneurial bent. Okay, how did I do that? I did it through blending it. Like you learn Python and R on your own. Go to Udemy, learn it, come to class. Half the program was actually online, free. It's a free resource for me. I ask the students to do some learning. They come to class, and then we do localization in the class. And we use mostly practitioners who have fun talking about what they do in e-commerce, in big data. Very low cost, evening program. Now that's sold. In fact, the bank came in and bought an entire class. A class of 30. We want nobody else in there. Our data and our students only. My second try was in the business school side. I'm wearing 2 hats. MBA, come on. You have an MBA? Yeah, it's passé, okay? Yeah, MBA. Okay, whatever. Now, MBA in entrepreneurship. Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of weird because entrepreneurs are not supposed to be corporate types, and why do you teach them for corporate world? So we created certificates in entrepreneurship. Again, blended. I asked them to go read or teach or learn from Steve Blank in Udacity. Part-time, 2-month certificate, 5 certificates. If you take all 5, I'll give you a diploma. Okay, so 2,000 liras per degree, which is what, 200 pounds, 300 pounds per certificate. Okay. Now, some of them took just the digital marketing part. Some of them took the new ventures, access to finance part. Some of them took more. So this is what I mean by diplomas being replaced by badges and universities having to play the game. Some examples of disruption in higher education. I'm running out of time, so I'll keep this very short. You should take a look at these schools. École 42 is a French school, 3 years, free, no diploma, no professors, no curriculum, self-organized 24/7. Students work on projects, period. Financed by a millionaire. For 10 years, 8 million euros a year is really nothing. I mean, I blew way more than that on building a real university with sports centers and so on. Okay. Old University is a real German university. Again, competency-oriented, self-directed, profs, but no classes, all project-based. These are sort of showing us the future. Minerva schools, has anyone heard of this? They've reduced the cost to $14,000 by getting rid of the buildings. Students stay in residence halls, and all the courses are online. But you get to be rotated in 6 different cities in residence halls. Shanghai to Hyderabad to San Francisco. Wow, an interesting way of being taught. And then there's the Lambda School. It's really not a university. But what I love about this, it's a Y Combinator startup, really. Is their financing. You pay $20,000 upfront or 17% of your income for 2 years. Okay? Why don't you try that? Would you dare?
I heard about my university.
Yeah, way to go. That's a good answer, man. All these universities charging you $50,000, $70,000. Why don't you go to them and say, hey, I'll go to school for free, and then I'll give you 17% of my income for the next 2 years. How's that? Next 10 years, how's that? Would they bite? I don't think so, because they know most of their graduates are not employable at that level. Okay, so they choose to charge up front. But this is the future, folks. We need to think about alternative ways of financing higher education to make it. I'm all for democratic education. Education should not be free, but it should be accessible for all. All right, this is the founder of Lambda School, by the way. He's a dropout from Brigham Young University in the US. Coding boot camps. all I want to say about this is very few AI programs, no OR programs, so opportunity for you. I'll mention one frontier, and this will not be news to most of you, but I still want to make sure that I mention this at the end. AI is the new OR frontier. AI is OR, okay? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the computer scientists in the audience. Machine learning is almost all OR, okay? Now, here's some words from a report. And this is an EU report. And then I found another one which is more local. Not a passing innovation, once in a 500-year revolution, says Anthony, Buckingham Vice Chancellor. And then he says British government does not really comprehend the magnitude. I'm kind of surprised because UK is actually leading in AI. They are leading in edtech. They are leading in education. But they don't seem to be investing a lot in AI ed, applications of AI in education. That seems to be an opportunity for operational researchers. I'll skip that. By the way, we know about Coursera and edX, Udemy and Udacity, but this is the real cutting edge, Carnegie Mellon's Open Learning Initiative. Go take a look at it. They have 40 courses, adaptive learning project. You can take these for free online, or you can adopt it for your courses at $25 per student. Why bother teaching intro to calculus over and over and over and again? Do you really think you can teach it better than AI? I don't think so. AI has you in it. You are a subset of AI. So I think this is I'll skip this also. But these are the opportunities for you. You could be working in the AI education end, or you could develop these AI tools, or you could be an entrepreneur. Spin out of your university and create a new company that is in AI edtech. It really is our cousin. I think you really need to think about this. Here's one last slide. O-net variables ranked by the importance for future demands for UK corporations. Take a look, take a look, take a look, take a look, take a look. And feel good about yourselves. The future is in OR's hands. It's really our game to lose, guys. But we need to be proactive. We need to take initiative and make things happen for us. If we just keep teaching the same course, same old, same old, same way, things will not change. These are my main takeaways. This is my email address. Thank you for putting up with me.